Sorry about that. I just realized I was speaking in silence with you. But good evening and welcome to tonight's program. Is our family life series, and we hope you've been enjoying the program so far. We've had the opportunity to discuss diverse things over several months, especially during this pandemic period. We have utilized our time at home very well. And tonight, I hope you have gathered around again. I hope you have connected family, friends to tune in tonight if you have not done it already. This is a good time to just invite somebody to join in. Today, our topic is youth and mental health. Youth and mental health. You know, the whole of the month of August, we have focused on the youth, and our general theme is Generation Next. So we have been investing time and discussions that benefit Generation Next. And today we will continue in that direction. And as I said, our main focus today will be on mental youth and mental health. Please invite somebody right now. This is such an important discussion. This is something that is affecting almost everybody in the world, because if you are not going through it, you know somebody who is going through it. And so we would like you to get ready so that we can learn together and also find a pathway of success in our mental health, and in particularly to our youth. And just by way of introduction, mental health, um, I know a lot of times we interchange when we say mental health. Most of the time, our mind immediately goes to mental illness. But yes, there is a connection, but the general topic of mental health speaks about the well being, the mental well being of a person. So there is a lot of positive connotations to mental health, and there is a lot that we can do regarding our mental health, but also there is a lot that is plaguing us in our mental uh, well being. There is some mental challenges, problems, issues, and we want to dive into that today. So, mental health deals with the social, psychological, and emotional well being of a person. And it deals with the function and how one is able to deal with daily life and all that it represents in our life. It refers to um, every single person of us, every one of us has to deal with mental health, because we all have mental faculties, and basically its health and function is essential to every human being. So this actually affects everybody. And as I said earlier, we are not we although we will talk about mental illness today, it's the general topic is mental health. So it encompasses what you do to be in good health mentally, um, um, what you do in your life to have a good mental state, you know. And we have to also understand that one's mental health condition may change at any time. So that is something else that we have to bear in mind. And another thing I would like you to know is that mental health has a direct correlation with our physical health. When one is going through mental health challenges, When you are well mentally, it has an impact on your physical being and how you operate in this life. And when there are mental challenges, it also affects your physical well being, which means it can really ground you when you are facing challenges with your mental health. And so I spoke about mental illnesses. So when you have mental ill health, it describes a range of conditions which can lead to changes in feelings and behaviors. And before we dive any deeper, I would like to go through a few things that I stumbled by that I want to put on the table before we go further in our discussion. The first time I heard a few years ago, I was so shocked to my boots that 1 out of every 4 people in the world will be affected by mental or neurological disorders at some point in their lives. 1 out of 4. A quarter of the population of the world will face some level of mental disorder in their lifetime. That is serious business. Now, a while ago, I read a stats that says that 450 million people suffered from mental health, mental condition. And lo and behold, just today, I realized that that number has jumped to 970 million people as at 2021. This is just 20 years. Between 2001 and 2021, the people that suffer from mental illness has increased from 450 to 970 million. That is scary. I don't think the population of the world in the last 20 years has doubled. you know. Anxiety is the most common mental illness in the world, affecting over 284 million people. And nearly 2/3 of people with a known mental disorder never seek help from a health professional. 75% of people will not go for help. And then narrowing down to what we will be discussing today, 1 in 10 children experience mental ill health. 1 in 10 children. Over 50% of mental health illnesses start before the age of 14 years. I don't know whether you are startled as I am, but I know that despite what we are reading, despite what their realities are, there is hope for human beings all the time. And that is an angle I would like us to also discuss today. What are the good side of mental health? What can we do? What is available for us? Above all, we also have God and supernatural interventions. So there is always hope. There is always hope. Today, I'm not here alone. I'm here to have a discussion with a very qualified personnel. And I would like to introduce to you, if you give me a moment, I just want to get into the bio in a moment. So I have with me today my own very son, whom I trouble very much. And I'm glad he's on stage with me today that I can trouble some more in the public. But I have David Ahipatela. I mentioned it and he says it sounds like what? English pronunciation. So probably he will give us the right pronunciation. But David A. King, he is a community mental health and addiction practitioner dedicated to helping youth and families understand the scope of mental health and social determinants of health. He's also a mentor and an entrepreneur. He is very passionate in everything he does. I've watched him in few years. A very young man, but very determined, very focused, a somebody with great vision. I admire so many things about him. And today I want to pick his brain on an area that I know he's very much vexed in. So welcome, David.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Is there anything that you would like to add to your accolades?
No, I think you mentioned the most important ones.
Well, I started by introducing our focus for today, which is youth and mental health. And in my own layman's vocabulary, I've tried to to give an introduction. I hope you were marking my papers and giving me 100%. Um, that is my take on the topic. But I want a clinical definition and explanation about what is mental health. Generally, what is mental health?
Well, to define mental health from a clinical perspective, I would say mental health is a complete state of physical, medical, and social well being, and not just the absence of disease or infirmity. And I believe you had mentioned earlier that when we think of mental health, the very first thing we think is to push it to mental illness. And that is the mistake that most of us do, not only those that are not in the field, and even those that are in the field, we do interchange those two words. And also, the other thing is when we think of mental health, the other mistake that we tend to commit is that we only focus on the brain, the mind. Everything and anything that happens in your brain, that is what we relate mental
Wow.
health to be, which is not the complete definition or perspective when we are thinking or talking about mental health.
Wow.
As I stated, it's a complete state of physical, emotional, and social well being. So, if one of these three is not completed or is not addressed, then your mental health is not
Affected.
is affected and it's not
Wow.
complete.
Wow.
And so I want us to remember that every time we think of mental health, to consider those three aspects.
Please mention that those three again.
So physical, emotional, and social well-being.
Wow.
So physical has to do with your physical, so your brain, your heart, your entire body, all right, your entire
The matter.
anatomy, the matter, your anatomy. And then emotional, it's your thoughts, your emotions, your ideas. And then your social well-being is how you connect,
Next
how
with
you
the
relate,
rest of the world.
right, how you as a
Wow.
person connect to your family, the community around you, and the society as a whole. That's what mental health really, really means.
That is amazing. Right off. I told you he knows his stuff. Well vexed in the field. And I've learned something new. I was waxing eloquent and describing it as a state of mind.
You tried, you did
I
well.
tried. How much marks do you give me?
Out of
90,
100,
90, about 98, 99, right? You just added the 1%. I'm holding the microphone, so let me give myself a good treat. But this is really, 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 really interesting already. And so, the next question I will ask is about mental illness. So now let's differentiate. We said talking about mental health, it's not about mental illness. So what is mental illness then?
So, how I like to define mental illness is just to say something happens, and then something that is not supposed to happen happened, that led to something that wasn't supposed to happen. I'll put that in a very simple word. So, if your physical or your emotions and your social well-being is being impaired, then you begin to translate or to cross into mental illness. So mental illness is just conditions that really involve your changes in mood and thinking and behaviors. So
Mm,
let me give an example to bring some clarity or understanding. So let's say my physical is affected, right? So once my physical is affected, that means my brain also is affected because I'm now thinking, I don't feel right in this side of my body.
mm.
I don't feel right here. And then that begins to psychologically play with my mind, resulting in me feeling some kind of ways, which now will begin to develop over time
These
if
are other
it's not
things.
addressed or if it's not looked at, and then it translates and becomes a mental illness.
Wow.
So these are just a combination of um, things that we go through, of thoughts and emotions and behavior, or a combination of both, that leads to mental illnesses.
Because whether we like it or not, however we connect to our physical being and the world also around us, everything is wired through our brain. Everything is wired through our brain.
Exactly.
So we interpret everything that is happening to us through our brain.
Right. Right.
So I guess the first messaging point that needs to communicate to you about what is happening to you physically or environmentally, social, whatever, has to go, the transmission has to go through the brain.
The brain. Right.
And however the brain interprets that, then gives you the feedback and your reaction, and then the impact is going to have on you. And then when all those things are not addressed, it will kick in into mental illness. Wow. Wow. This is this is deep already for me. I hope I have mental space to assimilate all the. So, any difference between mental illness and mental disorder, or they are the same term?
They are just the same term. We just choose which one to use. You can say mental illnesses or mental disorder. It's just preference
Oh, I see.
on what to use, either
Okay.
illness or disorder.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, and also I think it's also most people or most practitioner, we choose to use mental illness just because mental health in itself, it's already stigmatized. Like there's a lot of stigma around it. So when you say mental disorder, it's like you are
Mm.
adding more stigma to
Wow.
their um the
Condition.
topic, the condition that is already there. So we have tried to shy away to to use the word mental disorder, and so we just, most of the times we use the word mental illness versus mental disorder, but it's really, there's no difference, it's all the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's begin to narrow down to why we are sitting here. We
Right.
want to narrow this topic down to our young ones, to our youth in particular. So when we say youth, we are referring to adolescents and young adults, basically. We want to cover that ground. But something that I read as well, um, that said that actually mental um, health issues can even start from infancy. I don't know about whether when you are even in the stomach, there is something to diagnose about mental health, but I've heard that from infancy, one can even start suffering from mental um, health issues. Um, and what the stats that I just read says that by age 14, 50% of all mental health issues um, have happened by age 14.
So there have been a lot of studies that we are still doing more studies to actually define whether um, an infant or a fetus can have mental health or mental illness. Now, one thing that most practitioners have been advised is that it's really dangerous to diagnose a child at a certain age just because there are certain behaviors that are child related that sometimes we
Developmental.
might make the mistake or we might miss something and diagnose them for something that they are not, and they are just being children,
Children. Mhm.
right? And so that's why most of the times we shy away or we are not advised to diagnose, especially certain conditions, right? We shy away to diagnose those conditions because maybe it's we allow it to develop to a certain stage whereby we have enough evidence or medical proof to show that really there is a condition here that we need to explore and do more tests to be able to determine. Now, you said something about by the age of 14, most mental health has happened, which is true. And it's true in the sense that most mental health really happens in the younger age. So a lot of things happen at a young age, like children, whereby they go through a lot of things that they are not able to articulate, they are not able to express, they are not able to show. And we don't see those things simply because we assume they are just children. They'll grow out of it. And so these things stays in their mind and they are just there. So as they grow, you begin to notice, okay, my child is socially awkward. I beg your pardon for using that word. I'm trying to make you understand where the definition of or the explanation of by age 14, most adolescents have experienced mental health. So you go through a lot of series of life from the time you are born to by age 14 that you go through these things, abandonment, you go
Mm.
through lack of care, love,
Wow.
and so all
Mm.
these things are just piling
Yeah. Yeah.
inside because you don't really understand. You are
Wow.
only receiving and you don't know how to replicate that because you
Mm.
are not taught yet.
Wow.
So by the age 14, or even younger than that, you begin to see um, signs,
Signs.
right? Like, okay, there's a sign of so and so here, right? So that's what happens at a younger age before the person reach the age of 14.
Wow. 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 This is this is serious business. That's what I would say. So, what makes a good mental health, and why is good mental health important for the youth? And what does youth mental health mean? When we say youth mental health, what are we particularly talking about?
So we are trying to narrow down to the youth, and I must say, I have a very huge heart for the youth. I would do anything for them, and it's coming from a place of personal experience, right? And so anything that has to do with the youth, I'm invested. As long as it's legal and it's good, I'm invested directly, right? So when we talk about youth mental health, what does that mean? What it means is we are going to go back to the definition of what mental health is. So physical, medical, and social well-being. First, we need to see that every single youth is able to express those three aspects. And so if that is expressed already, we know for a fact that yes, this particular youth is already in line or expressing a good mental health. Now, to go further, we would also want to see them being able to adapt to change,
Okay.
especially in the world that we are living right now. There's a lot of things happening that they do not have the experience yet, and their ability to understand and cope immediately. So when we talk about what does youth mental health means, we are looking at first them being able to express those three: physical, medical, and social well-being, and then their ability to um, their ability to cope, and how they can easily develop a coping mechanism that is able to um, help them navigate through the complexities of life and their community and the society, right? So it always starts with the person, goes to to the community, and then the global in large. Because if you are unable to relate to you and then to your immediate community or family, you won't be able to relate or express that thing to the general scale, right? And so another question you ask is, what does good mental health really looks like or it means? Now, the question may imply that we have a scale that shows if your mental health weighs this much, then you have a good mental health. Now, there is no scale for a good mental health, but there are indicators. Like once you have these indicators, or once you see someone with these indicators, you can know or tell that, okay, this person is actually has developed or has maintained their mental health. And so things like the ability to feel, being able to feel. No, I'm referring to emotions. Most people ignore emotions, and that's where some of the issues begin. Because I say this every time, every emotion has a purpose. True. And so once we ignore certain emotions and they keep on coming and coming and coming, they are building up. When the time comes for them to explode, that's when the issue begins, right? And so if you have the ability to feel, and this I'm saying it in a general perspective, just to feel anything, the ability to feel the wind, the ability to feel happiness, to feel sadness. Being able to feel these things will tell you that you are on the path, or you are at that stage whereby you have developed a good mental health. And another thing is the ability to express and manage both good and bad emotions. Now, most people can easily express good emotions. It's easy. I'm happy, I laugh. I'm happy, I shout, and sometimes people cry. But the ability to express bad emotions and be able to manage it. And at this point, I just want to point one thing, that most people who are unable to express and manage negative emotions are male. Because society has created a pattern or a form whereby, as a male figure or as a male in general, you can't show certain things because it's an indicator of weakness. It's an indicator of you are not able to, as they use in the young language, you are not built for this.
You are not what?
You are not built for this.
Built,
You are not built for this. Like it's not your cup of tea. Like you are not able, like when something happens and you can easily cry, for example. As a guy, people would look at you differently, like just get yourself together and get it running. And so once you are able to express those emotions and be able to manage them, you know that you are already at that level of expressing good mental health.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. This is amazing. And so, what are the issues when it comes to mental health that are um, common mental health issues? What are the things that create mental health challenges for you?
Really, we have to go back to childhood. So, because before they become adolescents or youth, something must have happened in their childhood. So, as I mentioned earlier, neglect, abandonment, ex- experiencing discrimination, stigma, um, being marginalized. So I'm referring to the communities that are already marginalized. So the indigenous people, the black people, or people of color, if I may say. So all these things happen in their childhood or as they are growing, and so it get to a point whereby when they are old or when they are at an adolescent stage, they now begin to understand and see these things, and so that become limitation to them. It starts to affect their mental health, it starts to affect their thinking, it starts to affect how they relate to other people, how they relate to things.
Those things that have happened to you in your childhood, maybe because you didn't have expression for it,
Right.
we didn't see the impact. But now that you would understand it, now the an experience in your history, your past, is now triggering things in your present.
Exactly. And so you find a medium to express it. That's where the one of the issue begins. It's if you don't find the right medium to express that, that's how we have abusive um like abusive youth or youth who are just in trouble every now and then
Yeah.
because that was the only medium that they were able to
Avenue they
express
have to.
whatever that they had in.
Mm.
Yeah, so those are the issues that they face, and then other things will be just peer pressure. Your friend is doing this and that, you want to do the same thing, but you don't know how they are able to cope or manage it. Maybe you don't have the same stamina or you don't have the same ability to cope with it, and so you go ahead, you try it
So
once.
maybe things like maybe drug
drugs
abuse,
yeah, drugs
things like
abuse,
that. Mm.
drug abuse, sexual intercourse,
Mm.
you are not at that level to be able to understand or
Mm.
even sustain it. And
Mm.
so you go with the peer pressure, and once you are in it, you are unable to pull yourself
And a
out,
flood of
and
things
now
come
it
at
starts to
you.
affect you.
Mm.
And then there's also risk, like when you start doing those things, there is illnesses, diseases, right?
And you have to
Sexual
deal with all
diseases,
that.
all those things. So all those things come in as one package, and once they start affecting you and you don't have the capacity in your mind to sustain it, your mental health is impaired.
How about anxiety?
So some common things that really happen to youth is, like you said, anxiety, ADHD or ADD. Um, these are things, but for ADH, it's has to be diagnosed. Now we can see signs of ADHD, but we are you have to
And
be.
when you say ADHD, if you can define it or tell us what that means.
So ADHD is just attention hyperactive
So,
disorder, or it's either you are high or you are low, right? And so it can be put in a spectrum. So it's different for every individual. It's not the same. So one person can be really, really high, and one person can be no motivation at all.
wow.
Like no motivation. They can wake up in the morning and just they don't want to do anything at all, right? And so those are certain are the common mental health slash illnesses, so we don't confuse ourselves, that are common in the youth. So anxiety, ADHD, depression, eating disorder.
Mm.
It's one thing we don't touch a lot, and we don't touch a lot because we try to say is because they are growing. Growing youth eat a lot, but that becomes a problem because it could go out of hand and becomes an eating disorder. So
But why is it prevalent? Anxieties, depressions,
it's
eating
prevalent.
disorders. Why are they prevalent
So it's
with the youth?
prevalent. For example, anxiety. It's the way the world is running right now. There is a lot of demand on not just the adult but also the young community, like the young population, and so there is all this expectation that they have to meet. For example, I'll give you an example. Like if you are in school, your parent expects you to get good grades, Your parents expect you to finish high school, graduate, maybe with awards, not just regular graduate. You need honors, right? And then you
Every
have to,
time.
right, and you have to apply to like university, not
Mhm.
college. So the parent put all this expectation on the youth. It's there, but they are not helping them navigate or walk through those expectations, or how they can work together hand in hand to be able to make it,
Meet the expectation.
yeah, make it easier or appealable to them,
Mm.
because they have their own perspective. And so once they start to think about all this weight on them, they start to think, okay, what if I don't make it? What if I fail? What if I don't graduate with honors? What if I don't graduate and make it and get the grades to help me go to university? And I can only get the grades that will allow me to get to college.
So
That
the
becomes the pressure.
fears and the pressure
The fear becomes
mm,
in, and now you have anxiety.
paralyzes them.
Now it starts really slow, really low, but the more demands or the more expectation that the youth are put in, the more anxiety grows and grows, and then eventually you are diagnosed.
But is it? I'm I'm trying lately to learn not to compare my growing up with this generation's growing up. But sometimes I can't help it but compare and see where the changes happen. How come, basically, in my mind and from my experience, my generation, we also had our anxiety. It may not be external things that are happening, it may not be the same as my children are facing, but we also had our challenges. And in our minds at that time, there will be severe challenges as well. Um, but I see that the majority of us scale through. So, why is it that in the present generation, their resilience and how they process pressure and expectations negatively affects them rather than build them up? And I guess with my generation, that is where we become impatient with the youth, because it's like, well, we also had challenges and we scaled through, and it didn't have this negative impact on us. It rather helped us, prepared us for the world, built us up. So we become impatient with our youth when they are facing their level of anxiety, right? But what is the difference? How come, well, I'm forcing you to speak to a generation that you didn't grow in, but professionally, since you've studied this, what do you think will be the difference between the generation, uh, my generation? I can't say the generation past. I'm still here, and the the new generation that is we are raising now. I see that their level of resilience and standing pressure and all that is really low. So they easily are affected mentally when a little pressure is put on them. Because as a parent, I think it's my duty to guide you, to bring things to you, to lift you in expectation, to direct you in life. And so if it's not wrong for a parent to have an expectation of their child, right? But if my expression of that, I know some parents really pressure their children. I know that. But I can see in general, testing the pulse of our youth today, it looks like a little pressure to jumpstart them and kick them in life to go the direction they need to go becomes so overwhelming, and they easily throw in the towel. What is your take on that?
Um, as you said, it's hard. to go to the generation that I didn't grow in, but just to connect a few things. Your generation, yes, you had your own limitations and you had your own challenges. Now, it's like living in two different worlds. What we are facing, it's more on not only from the household, but also community, society. So let's say in your generation, your parent, your uncle, your aunt, they were all part of your upbringing. Everyone had a take to do or to impact your life in one way or
That
the
is
other.
true.
That by itself, it helps the person to know that, okay, I'm not only with my family, but I have an extended family. And so when the pressure comes, it's coming in various dimensions. So daddy comes and say, you gotta do this and this and that. Mommy comes and say, yes, daddy said you gotta do this and that and that. Uncle comes and says the same exact thing. With this generation, there is a split whereby either mommy and daddy they are not on the same level, or mommy and daddy are on the same level, but uncle and auntie they are not on the same level. So that gives the youth the autonomy to say, I can compromise here, auntie and uncle will come and defend me. And so we are not building that resilience, that plateau resilience, that this is what you gotta do. Because if you don't do this, that's gonna happen. Now, in your generation, you didn't have much options apart from school.
Yeah.
Go to school, you make it in life.
Yeah.
Or if you're a female, don't go to school, marry someone who is already established and wealthy and make it in life. In our generation, which you are still living in it, we have options.
Wow.
We have options. We have, I would say, um, we have the grace to commit mistakes, to commit errors,
Wow.
and be able to still find our way or find something to fall on.
Wow.
So if I don't go to school, I know I can do something that can still generate income for me, depending on which part of the world you're living in. So all those things affect how your resilience works.
Interesting.
Right? For example, I'll give you my own example. When I was growing up, I didn't have much options because I grew up in a place whereby I didn't have much support or people to work with me, guide me, or take me to a right path. I had to do all this from my own mindset. And so, if you compare my resilience with those of other youth or other young adult of my own age, it's different because we had different upbringing
environment,
and different things that came towards us. And so it's how you look at it and say, yes, yes, I have options, but this is the best option because whatever happens, I can always fall back onto this. And so with the youth in this generation, our generation, is that first they have option, second they have, which is going to be a thing that it could be criticized, they have democracy.
Big deal.
I say this every time. They have so much democracy that they can, and democracy is good at to some extent, especially when you are parenting, because the thing is, you've been there, you've seen how things are done, you know the dangers, and you know the path that they can take that can lead them to a better place or to be successful. And so, from your perspective, you are really trying your level best to help them not maybe do the same mistake that you did, or tell them, listen, you have an opportunity here that I didn't have. And I'm trying to help you not go that direction, but go this way. But because of the autonomy, because of the democracy, huge democracy that they are able to deliberate. I'm not saying youth or teenagers shouldn't have democracy, but to what extent? because they can't see where you can see. And so it's either they're gonna have that debate with you in and out, and eventually they get it or they don't get it and go the wrong path and fail.
It will be costly.
Very, very costly, right? And so those are things are some things that we have different between your generation and our generation, right? That's what I think from my perspective.
I mean, parental expectations will always be there because a parent will always desire something good for their children. So parental expectation will always be there. So basically, from what you are saying, what I'm deducing is the makeup of the society has changed. And with that, it has changed the way the youth are listening to their parents now because of the options that they have now. You know, there are little children who are now sitting in their homes who are YouTubers that they are making big money that I've heard that even parents stop work to support those little children in those things that they are doing that has given them fame and is earning money, and it becomes a family affair, a family business. So you see little children, they themselves branching out and doing things. And with all that's going on, it is difficult for a parent to educate you and say, hey, school is very important. Education is very, you got to invest into it. They don't see. What do I do for? What do I go to school for? To be able to gain employment and earn money. And I'm earning the money right now, so I don't need to. So the options aspect of things could really set the youth of this generation up not to invest in certain things that we valued and we thought is needed for you to be successful in life.
Yeah, and just before I forget, one thing is if you look at your generation, you spent more time at home with your family, with your parents or your grandmother or something. So constantly you are receiving virtue. Constantly. When you come to our generation, the time that we spend at home, it's very less. So that family time or that interaction between a youth and an adult, a family adult,
Totally
it's very limited.
narrowed.
And so now, the values, like the core values, they are impaired because as a parent,
This is strong point.
as a parent, you only spend, let's say, give or take 4 hours in a day.
4 hours.
Give or take. Give or take 4 hours because maybe, for example, daddy works in the morning, mommy works in the night. Or the kids after school, they have all these extracurricular activities. And so when they come home, they're exhausted. Mommy, I want to eat, sleep, go on my phone and sleep.
And then they go on their gadgets and stuff as well.
Exactly.
Even when they are in the same space.
Exactly. So there's that limitation of core values and just the ability for them just to be in a very positive, family or traditional oriented space. It helps build your resilience because you look at your grandfather, for example, and say, I want to be able to help grandfather in the next 4 or 5 years because grandfather doesn't have A, B, C. And so that builds your resilience to be able to drop certain things that are not wealth carrying, to be able to do the things that you're supposed to do to be able to be successful.
Wow.
Versus in this generation, as I said, one, we have options. Second, it's more of it's my life. I want to do what pleases me. If I'm happy, I'm happy because we do encourage happiness.
It's still part of societal conditioning,
Right.
Because when we were growing up, it is community affair, it is family affair. The village raises the child. You know, you do something outside of the house. Before you enter the house, somebody has reported you to your parents, or they themselves will give you discipline. So there is a community watch. These days, when you see somebody's child doing something, when when I came to this side of the world, I had a tendency of correcting people's children. Seriously, and I feel that was care. That was caring for other people's children. I'm not being selfish and self-centered. And so when I see somebody's child misbehaving or going the wrong way or something, I feel that they have the responsibility to step in. And sometimes when I came to this side of the world, you will see the parents really in the space and they are not minding what their children are doing. And then I'm taking it upon myself to respond to what the children are doing. And I had to learn in many, many hard ways that number one, over here, parents don't want other people to interfere in correcting and in directing their children. And so you now gradually learn to step back and watch things happen, because that is the parenting style that is going on here. And so when that happens, society, people build the attitude of, so even on the road, when they see somebody being killed, somebody being bullied, injured, everybody crosses to the other side and move away. That is what we have built in the society. So there is no support system for each other anymore. You see. So it is now built into the society that we are living. There is less correction. When you correct your children, you are hard on them. They can pick up a phone and call an authority and say, I'm being abused. Really, where I grew up, some of the discipline I must say was abuse.
Very, very
there
true.
must be a balance. Some of the things that we experienced were truly abused, but also there were discipline. You see, but here you see the opposite, where um, there is less discipline, or maybe the approach of discipline is not our approach. We don't know the dialogue way of getting through to our children. It's a balance, but I see that there is a fiber of the modern society that is not helping us to build resilience in our youth.
Like, just to touch on some things that you said, yes, there have to be a balance between discipline and cruelty, because that's the word I can express. I mean, most of us went through it. We seen it, then it was okay. But after you grow up, you're like, hey, like the last time that when my father did
now
something,
it's
like,
causing you mental illness.
Exactly. Was he really, like, you begin to question those things. And so those things, they can go two ways. They could either be a mean to discipline you, to be an upright citizen, and make sure that you don't do anything wrong, because you are not the only person. You are a part of the community, family, and society. So anything you do affects something. Or you look back, you think back, and that becomes an issue mentally. And so I think that's what happens here in the other side of the world, whereby they think of it, they look like, oh, no, this is not fair. Let us take away the discipline, the harsh discipline that is there. But then what does happen is, what that does is,
you have to replace it with something.
What do we replace it with?
Yes.
And the replacement, does it actually help to the upbringing of this child to still be an upright citizen, or to still be a person of virtue, a person that will be able to help the society? Because I tell people every time, every thief, every rapist comes from a home, comes from a household, which he stepped out of the household, maybe picked something from the community or from the house, and then they became that thing. I'm a person who don't believe that you are born a rapist. I don't believe those things personally. There are people who believe that there is a fiber in us that we are wired to be those things. I don't. I haven't seen any study that has proven that point. So I'm going to stand on that. That is due to how society has been modified to please certain things that has in one way impaired our youth not to be resilient. Now, not to say that all the youth don't have the resilience. There are youth
That
in
are
this generation
that are
that
very realistic.
they are still very, very resilient and they have discipline without any cruel beating, right? So I think it's just balance where we can find the balance between discipline and cruelty and be able to say, this is what we're going to go with and see how it goes. At the same time, paying attention to how they are being affected mentally. Because eventually, if we don't give it in the right direction or in the right way, it might result in trauma, and that would be hard to deal with in the long run.
Okay. We have a few things to cover, and I see our time gone so far. So I would like us to quickly touch base on certain things. So how can the youth improve their mental health?
Okay. One thing that every time comes to mind immediately: sleep.
What's that?
Sleep.
Sleep. Oh,
Be
wow.
able to sleep. We don't see.
I have to leave this stage.
we,
You mentioned a prohibited word in my presence.
we don't see the importance of sleep, especially for young people, because we are strong, we are healthy, we feel healthy. Like sometimes I do it too. I go to bed at 3, I'm up at 6. And after I go for my morning run, I feel normal. But what is happening is I am limiting my brain to receiving the rest that it deserves.
So the
So
body will say, "Oh, you are okay."
you're okay, but every single time I do that, I am reducing the level of
Brain function.
brain function. Your brain needs to rest this much hours. Give you that, you are able to function at a certain level. Now, you may not feel it within 2, 3, 4 times, but down the road, it's going to affect you. That's one, because most youth don't sleep. They go in their bedrooms and on their
And they are not
devices.
sleeping. Yeah.
Right? And then they either sleep late and wake up late. Now, studies have shown that if you have a scheduled time of sleep and waking up, so you say, I go to bed at 8, I wake up at 8, you will be functioning way better than any other person that doesn't have a time
Pattern of sleep.
of sleeping. Because your brain is like a mechanism that says, this is my program. So I function on this program. But like not to say, there are days that you may not follow the schedule, but it won't be an everyday thing. So that's one, being able to sleep. Another key point is being
And before you move
right.
you move on, it is very key for the young ones because they are still developing.
Exactly.
Their brain is still developing.
Exactly.
So if anything comes against it, you are really injuring your
lot.
brain.
Yeah. So you may not see the effect right there and then, but down the road, you feel it. And so that's one. The second one I want to say is being able to develop good and health relationships. This is key to me. And I think you would agree with me that if we go to scriptures, even if I may say, it says, bad company corrupts good company,
manners.
right? So whoever you are hanging with will determine how your mental health is going to look like. So being able to find those friends or adults that have the right thinking, that can see your potential, that can see who you are, can understand you, it will help you. And now, at the same time, I want also to throw the ball to the adult and the parents that we are And I'm saying we because we are dealing with the youth. Yes, I'm still a youth, but at this time, I'm
You
referring to
believe?
the younger generation.
Well, I did say
the,
we are talking about the young adults
the
too.
young
So
adults.
you throw
So
yourself in there.
when, as an adult, when you see a young person and you are constantly giving them words of affirmation, words of encouragement, what that does to them is they feel that they can do anything. Like they have this feeling that, you know what, someone can actually see the goodness in me, someone believes in me. So that also helps their mental health, right? That's two. Third, eat healthy. They need to be able to eat healthy because the youth likes to snack and eat fast food,
Sugary
sugary
food,
food,
junk
which is
food.
it's good to them because their reason is I'll burn it out.
Mm.
But how much do you know you are consuming and how much are you burning and what are you affecting?
And it's not even the burning. You could, because maybe you are very active. These days, youth are less and less active. Their engagement is more on gadgets than outside activity. But hey, if you are disciplined, you could be burning it out, but it's nutrition. It's your food. Yes, it's your fuel. It's the nutrition that you are getting. So if you are eating things that don't have nutrition, sooner or later, it's going to affect you.
That's true. And just last one, which I'm very passionate about, is being able to practice mindfulness. And I wish sometimes down the road we can actually have a segment on mindfulness. So this
That
is
sounds dangerous to me.
mindfulness really
Explain.
is just a practice that you bring yourself into the present. It's more like meditation.
That's why I say it's dangerous because we will be nearing dangerous grounds.
Because
So,
most people, not only the youth, but most people are not able to just stop.
yes,
Just put a stop, breathe,
be in the
feel
moment.
everything of right now,
Yes,
in the now, before you can continue. What
notice
that
the skies and the
exactly?
greenness around you.
And it doesn't have to be 30 minutes, 20 minutes. No. I practice mindfulness 5 seconds. If I were driving on the highway, I'm a person who doesn't fall asleep. But if I feel by any means that I'm sleepy, all I need to do is to stop the car and close my eyes literally for 35 seconds, and I'm back to fully functioning. So depending on how your body function, you need to be able to practice mindfulness. Just rest, reset, and carry on.
So it's just reset.
Pretty much.
Yes.
But what it does is you isolate everything that is happening to just feel something. So some people can
Even
close
breathing, you're breathing,
exactly.
exercising, breathing.
Yeah,
Deep breathing. You
in and
can
out.
just,
In and out.
yes.
Some people close their eyes, some people can keep their eyes open, some people go for a walk, just isolate everything, feel your toes, feel your hair, feel your fingers, feel something.
Be present in
Be
your
present
body.
in the moment before you can, because really the world it's on the highway. Like it's just
Fastly.
fast. And
Yes.
we are actually going with it.
Trying to catch up with the
Exactly. There's
world.
all these things happening, and we just can't say, you know what, today I want to stay in and just relax my body and everything, like to be able to function the next day. So mindfulness is really, really very important. And I hope we can all get to that point whereby we actually have a schedule to practice this mindfulness.
That is very important. That is very important because um, we can literally be lost in this world. Sometimes I feel it. You are trying to play catch up. There are so many things going on, and they are fulfilling things. When you have a drive and you are logged into things that you love to do, and you are on the move. But I realize that it makes you to lose a lot as well because you are not connecting with you know. So there are some times that my phone will be there and it's ringing, and I'm like, I'm not picking. It's not an issue with who is calling. I literally they leave the phone and I'm not even looking at who is calling because I just need that break, that disconnect,
Yeah, it's important to have that
you
break.
know, that disconnect and feel me today sitting down just here. And it makes you come back to yourself and to enjoy you and being in your skin, because at the end of the day, when you are not being comfortable with you that you are with 24 hours, other things will begin to eat at you, and then you are left alone with yourself that is sickly. All right. So I have a question. My question is there a genetic component of mental illness?
Um, it's a complex question
Okay.
and a very, from my perspective, a very dangerous question. This is how I'm gonna answer it. There have been a lot of studies that have tried to prove that there is a genetic component to some people even being born with a condition. Now, most of the studies haven't been definitive yet for many diagnoses. Like we have tried, and when I say we, I mean the people that are in their
In the
um,
profession.
yes, um, there haven't been a definitive research that says for this condition someone can be born with it. Now, when a woman is pregnant, a lot of things happen in there that we have no control of. We have no ideas what happens in there. Now, depending on the activities of the mother, depending on what she's consuming, depending on her thoughts, depending on what the baby, there's a belief that at a certain month, the baby is able to hear things.
Mm.
So all those things come in play on how the baby is born and what is the state of their mind, if I have to put it in that way. So there are certain conditions that a child can be born with, like Down syndrome, for instance. That's something that a person can be born with. And there are other conditions that can be hereditary. So someone can be born with it based on how their family lineage has had it.
So that is basically that's my question, because I've seen families where you see maybe mother had mental illness, and then not all the children, but maybe one child or
Right.
two out of children also suffer from mental illness, and is you can see it in the history.
Right.
So that is my question: whether
So
there is
that's why I said it's a very complex question, because if I go straight and say yes, that means I am
you
including
can back
every
it,
I
then you
can
can.
and I can include every other diagnosis that someone has at any point of their life. Say they were born with it. And there is so many diagnoses that some of them we are trying to make them a diagnose and it's not. And so that's what I'm saying. There is a component, there is certain diagnoses that we can trace them and we can actually prove and link that this it's in the family lineage. And there are other mental health or mental illnesses that we cannot confidently say this is in the family, or sorry, this is genetics, right? So it's a give and take depending on what it is. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything before we go? Is there any point that we've not brought to the table that you would like to bring out before we bring the curtain to a close?
I think what I have to say really is I say this every time, that if we care about the future, we need to start working on it now. So the youth and the children are the future. So if we care about that, we need to start looking at them and really hearing them and finding um, ways to help them build build resilience, help them like work on their mental health. You have to find ways and means to actually pull them out from chaos and tell them, listen, today we are just staying in the house and just having a day of calmness. Like, left to them alone, they wouldn't do anything. They would just do what pleases them because in their mindset, this is good. There's nothing wrong with it. But because we have a better understanding and we know actually what certain behaviors can lead them to, we need to be able to have that safe net in the home, in the communities, in various organizations, church, and other organizations, that they are able to be embraced and feel loved so that their mental health can be maintained at all costs. Because if your mental health is impaired, it's
That's
really,
it.
really hard for you to bring it back. It takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of therapy. It's a lot. So if we can find a way to actually promote good mental health, I think that would be the best thing we can do for our youth, apart from anything else.
Thank you so much. Thank you, David. And my closing remarks will be on this few points. Number one, that one of the things that society totally needs to do, you and I, every one of us, we have a role to play in our mental health. Either personally, how you are taking care of yourself, or how you are taking care of other people, um, your sphere of influence, um, or when it comes to stigma, of those who are actually experiencing mental illnesses, the stigma that we attach to it. We have to recognize that mental illness is an ailment. It's a You are sick, like somebody has a headache, somebody's had a stomach ache, somebody has is facing diabetes or hypertension, or is a type of sickness, is illness. And so we got to take the stigma out of it, because that is one of the reasons why people don't seek help. People don't seek help. The majority of people don't seek help, even when they recognize they have some level of mental illness, because of the stigma that it comes with. So if we take the stigma out of it, more people will accept and then seek for the necessary help for a healthier society. Number two, if one person is sick in the family, it affects the rest of the family. Even I can extend it to the society. But for sure, the pressure that one person being sick in the family have on the entire family. If you have siblings, the way it affects the siblings. If you are the parent, the way it impacts you. Even your ability to go out there and earn money and support the family, because you have the situation at home that needs attention. So there are diverse ways that when somebody is having mental health challenges, it affects everybody else. And so we are all in it together. And so the earlier we get on the program and make it our business to do our part, maybe your part is to make sure you are not judgmental. Maybe your part is to make sure that if you are in the position of decision making for mental illness, this comes to our government and whatever the machinery, ministerial machineries that um, make provision for these things, to make sure that we prioritize mental health in our society. Because as we can see, is more than epidemic, it's pandemic. I call it a pandemic. When some way, somehow, the majority of people will experience some level of mental ill health in their life, we must take it serious because you don't know whether tomorrow it will be you facing the challenge. We don't know who it will affect. And that brings me to my next point, that it can be anybody, it can be you. And therefore, have some empathy for people who have mental health challenges. Don't relegate them to uselessness, but make an effort and ask, how can you help? Maybe your help may not be what I can offer. Everybody in this society can chip in, depending on where you stand in society and what kind of help you can give. So all of us must work together. It's an issue of the society. And knowing that 50% up to the age of 14 of children can be diagnosed with mental health is a big deal for me. 50%, folks. That's a lot. That's a lot. So we all have something to do about this, right from our homes to the community that we are, to our schools, to our governments, to our health systems. Everything must be designed to save the next generation. If this is what is going on, because now mental health, I read, is, I think, the second highest disability in the world. Second highest. But normally, when you look at a nation's budget for health, only most people, even the advanced world, 1% of budget goes into mental health when it is forming the second highest of disability in the nations worldwide. Something must be done. And we all must engage whatever machinery is there to help our next generation. Otherwise, we are in for a disaster. Because if they are supposed to be the adults when we are old and seniors, they will be the ones who will be taking care of us. And if they are in bad mental shape, what is going to happen to us? We can't afford to be oblivious to the epidemic or pandemic, I would say, that is happening around us. But there is good news. If we pursue mental health, if we pursue things that will make our society thrive, we will really get rid of most of the things that are plaguing us, having the mental meltdown for most of us, and especially our youth. I hope we have communicated something very good to you that has given you either a wake up call or some what do I some mission. Maybe we have set you up on the path of a mission to help our youth to gain their mental health. God bless you. Let us all invest into our youth because they are taking over from us. They are taking over from us. And we got to leave them in the best shape ever. God bless you as you think about ways to contribute to this agenda. I will call it an agenda. Okay? God bless you. Before we sign off, I will encourage you to give into this work at Fruitful House. And our tentacles go far. There are so many things that we got our hands in and we are doing to the glory of God and to support our society. And so give generously and let's keep the work in Fruitful House going. God bless you, and let us pray for our youth before we go. Father, we lift our youth before you as we discuss things that affect their health mentally and things that negatively affect them and what all of us, our roles are. Father, we pray that you help our youth where we have failed them. Lord, you in your providence, please save them. Please deliver them. Please uphold them. Because you said in your word that you yourself will teach our children. Where we have failed, we know you can step in. But in the meantime, as we discuss these things, oh God, Help us to build up that sense of urgency and whatever we need to do to heal our youth and our young ones as they grow, so that we will build a better society, a better adults. You said we should train up children the way they should go, and when they grow, they will not depart from it. Help us to be able to adhere to this duty. And Father, we pray that if there is any young person that is struggling mentally, we pray your healing virtue to reach them, to touch them, to heal them, to make them whole, and set them on the path of victory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Before we go, I know we have some youth programs coming up. Would you like to quickly, in the next 30 seconds, speak into that program before we go? Yeah.
So we have our youth lituation conference coming up. I believe next week, September 10th, 11th, and the 12th. We'll be here in person on the Friday of September 10th. That will be our worship concert, and our theme for the year for this conference is Ignite. Now we've gone through a lot last year and this year, the pandemic, um, the staying indoor, and now we want to ignite. We want to bring those gifts, those talents that God has invested in our youth. And so I would encourage you, if you have a youth in your home or if you know a youth, please, please, please direct them to Fruitful House. We have a lot of space for them to participate and be involved in various activities and positions here. And so I look forward to see your youth and all the parents also on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's gonna be here at Fruitful House. Please, I hope to see you guys there. Let's go, fuego. The flames never goes out.
The flames never goes out. Amen. So Friday, 7 p.m. on September 10th. Saturday, 11 a.m. September 11th at 11 a.m. September 11th. And then Sunday, 11 a.m. as well. We are here with the youth taking over the service. Okay? So something to look forward to. God bless you. Have a wonderful night, a wonderful week till we meet again next week. Is Shalom. God bless you.